Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. It's just gone 12. My name is Victoria Hobbs and I'm coordinator for the Nourish network. Thanks for joining us today, where we will learn how university policies and practices play a pivotal role in promoting healthy, equitable and environmentally sustainable food environments to positively influence staff, student and community health and wellbeing. Our presenters will explore the results of a project that benchmarked 9 universities on their food environments, outline best practice, and provide practical tips for helping to transform university policy and practice. This is our agenda for today. If you have any questions during presentations, please put them in the chat box as we go, or you can raise your virtual hand during question time at the end. The session will be recorded and made available on the Nourish Network and Refresh websites after the event. Towards the end of the webinar, you'll be invited to complete a short survey to share your thoughts about the event, and the link to this will be shared in the chat. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, the traditional owners of the land on which I'm calling in from today. We pay our respects for allowing us to gather on their land and to their elders past, present and emerging. So again, welcome. The NHNRC-funded Centre of Research Excellence in Food Retail Environments for Health, known as Refresh, is the first international centre for healthy food retail research. It's led by Alfred Deakin, Professor Anna Peters, and Refresh aims to transform food retail environments to improve diet and health at a population level. Also led by Professor Peters is the Nourish Network, which is a multi-sector collective working to increase demand, availability and access to healthy and sustainable retail food. Our speakers today are Gary Sachs, who's Professor of Public Health Policy and Co-Director of Global Centre for Preventive Health and Nutrition, GLOBE, at Deakin University. Gary's research focuses on policies for improving population diets and preventing obesity, including evaluation of government and corporate policies for improving the healthiness and environmental sustainability of the food supply. Sandra Murray is an academic, educator and dietitian working within the School of Health Science at the University of Tasmania, UTAS. Sandy also co-facilitates the UTAS Sustainable Food Systems Working Group. She was acknowledged for her work in sustainable food systems by being awarded an ACTS Australasian Green Gowns Award winner for excellence in 2020. Dr. Catherine Elliott is a Senior Sustainability Officer at the University of Tasmania and coordinates the Sustainability Integration Program for students and is the facilitator of the Education for Sustainability Communities of Practice. And finally, Shirley Phan is a Project Support Officer, Nutrition and Wellbeing at Monash University and an accredited practicing dietitian with a keen interest in transforming food environments to be health promoting and environmentally sustainable to support the development of healthy eating habits for life. Please get in touch with me after the webinar if you would like the contact details of any of our speakers. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Gary Sachs. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vic, and thanks everyone for joining. Let me just get my slides all sorted. I think that's working. And so, yeah, thanks for coming along. There's been a whole lot of work that's led up to us being able to launch this report that we're putting out today. I know lots of people who are at this webinar have contributed to this, so thank you to everyone who has been involved. And so what we're doing today is launching our report that benchmarks Australian universities on their food environments. Importantly, we've looked at the health, equity and environmental sustainability of campus food environments. So I think probably everyone on this webinar knows that improvements to food environments are an urgent requirement as part of efforts to address health and planetary health. And I think on the surface, it might feel like looking at university environments is kind of small fry and maybe in the big picture of what the world needs. Probably when I started out, I was thinking, oh, well, universities are just a tiny little part of that. But at the same time, I think they are a really important influence on particularly young people. 7% of the Australian population is involved in the higher education sector. It's a big employer, but I think more importantly for me is that universities really can be leaders of social change. And so I think looking at how healthy and environmentally sustainable campus food environments are is really critical to showing what's possible. So if we look at universities as a microcosm of what the world could be like, I think that's really the impetus for focusing on this particular sector. And so universities definitely can be a champion for young people's health, not to mention the staff that universities employ and their health. But I think really the focus on young people by creating healthier and environmentally sustainable campus food environments is a real opportunity. We've seen universities take the lead in other health initiatives like smoke-free campuses. And so I think, there's a real opportunity there for universities to shine a light on what's possible. So the aim of this project was to look at the extent to which universities in Australia are creating healthy and sustainable campus food environments, and really importantly, to try and guide practical action across the sector. So this has been going for a little while now. Back in 2020, we set out to develop a tool to assess university food environments. This was part of the Informus network, which is all about monitoring food environments globally. And so we set up a project committee which involved academics as well as people working in the campus services area, as well as health promotion on campus. And we developed this tool which gives universities a score out of 100. It looks at university governance around food and campus environments. It looks at the campus facilities itself, and it also looks at the food retail outlets on campus. And so the various indicators of performance that sums up to give a score out of 100. As I said, it looks at nutrition and health, environmental sustainability, several aspects of that, as well as equity. So particularly looking at food security and initiatives to address that. I won't go into detail about what's involved, but we reached out to all the universities across Australia for them to obviously voluntarily to be involved. We do need, as part of this assessment, needs involvement from the university because of we need to go on campus and we need access to policy information and internal documents. So it's not something that we could do without the support of each university. Typically, we had a little project committee set up at each university. Usually it was students at that university conducted the audit of both the policies and the campus environment. We then used that UniFood tool to assess each university, to work together with the university to identify actions that they can take, and then to communicate that within the university. I should point out that obviously I'm based at Deakin, and Deakin was one of the universities assessed. So I guess that is a conflict of interest, but we did try to stick to the process and the assessment methodology of the tool. So just pointing that out, that Deakin was one of the universities assessed. And in total, we got 9 universities to agree to do this assessment, which was okay. I think there's 27 universities in Australia, so we sort of got a third of them from 4 different states. If we ever got around to doing this again, I'd hope we'd get a few more universities. But to be clear, the results I'm presenting today are just based on these 9 universities. And thank you to all the people at those universities for their support for this work. So each university that was involved, we produced a report for them, which gave them their scorecard as well as their recommendations for improvement. It highlighted good practice examples and was really designed not to be like it was designed to be supportive, so highlighting strengths and pointing out opportunities for improvement. And we've had a couple of universities already come and ask us to do the second round of this. So I took that as positive feedback for how it was received. And so I think the next slide has the results. And so those are the overall results. The scores are out of 100. Probably for the people on the call, their eyes will first go to find where their university scored. I guess at a high level, you can see that there is quite a range there. So certainly some universities taking much more action in this area than others. And I was pleased to see in some ways that, well, mixed feelings. It would have been weird if Deakin came out first, because then people would have said, oh yeah, right. Well, of course, Gary's at Deakin, so that's why. But so it kind of suited me that Deakin are not at the top. Deakin have taken a lot of action, but there are other universities that are taking more action. And the mean or the median score there of 46, I think, reflects that there's a whole lot more work to do across the sector. And so what I'll do in the next few slides is talk about some of the good practice examples we found and some of the key areas for improvement. There is a report for each university, particularly if you're from one of those universities and are interested in what the recommendations are, we can provide those to you. So focusing on some of the strengths, we did see several examples of universities taking strong action in this area. A lot more focus on environmental sustainability than health, which I'll talk to in a bit more detail. I think unsurprisingly, a lot of focus on building staff and student skills and awareness. I think I mentioned before that universities are a bit of a microcosm for the broader policy environment. We know historically in Australia, there's been much more of a focus on knowledge and awareness than policy action. But some really key examples of universities engaging with suppliers and retail outlets to promote healthy food, which I'll talk to. So look, there's quite a bit to get to, so I'm just going to give a flavor of the results in each of those 3 settings of the 3 parts of the UniFood tool. Under university systems and governance, what we were looking for there is a strong policies and strategy around healthy campus environments. And there were a few good examples there. So the University of Sydney has a really, I think, well-written sustainability strategy, and there are other universities that have these too. A lot of University of Sydney's sustainability strategy focuses on non-food things, which is completely fine, but food does feature in it. Where it does, they have some targets around sustainable food, particularly focused on reducing waste. The targets didn't extend to the healthiness of food, but I think it paints a picture of what a good sustainability strategy can look like. The best practice would be for food and the types of foods provided and sold on campus to feature more prominently. Very few examples of universities with policies around food environments, and so I think that's an area where more action is needed. Some universities monitor their food environments really well. I think it was University of Tasmania and Flinders Uni regularly conduct surveys of staff and students, what they're eating, looking at food security, looking at the price of food. Most universities have some funding and resources around healthy and sustainable food environments. I know Monash have dedicated staff to this, and I think if universities are taking this seriously, they would have dedicated funding and resources to support healthy campus environments. Most universities have some sort of stakeholder engagement around this topic, but I think best practice would be for students to be represented on those groups that are focused on healthy and sustainable environments. Not all universities have that. The second area, looking at campus facilities, some really good examples about healthy vending. So Monash, I think, seem to be the leader here with a really strong policy about the healthiness of their vending machines, and I think that's been multiple years in the making. And I think there's a lot to learn from how Monash has engaged with their vending supplier to have pretty healthy vending machines. They weren't part of the study, but the Australian Catholic University has a policy to ban sugary drinks in vending machines, and so I think, from my point of view, that'd be an example of leading practice in this area. And from an equity point of view, quite a few universities have policies in place around food relief and free food on campus. I think University of Wollongong was one of the examples we cited there. Under advertising, we found universities are fairly good in Australia for not having too much advertising and sponsorship on campus. Of the universities we looked at, University of Tassie was basically free from advertising at all. So I think that was the leading example there. From a catering point of view, University of Sydney has what I think is an excellent catering policy, focused on both sustainability and healthy food. And I think, again, the other universities could probably borrow from what the University of Sydney is doing there. And I know that a heap of effort went into getting that catering policy in place. And I think from catering, I mean, it can be quite a difficult policy to get up, particularly when you're talking about people's morning tea and what they're allowed to eat there. But I think they're a real opportunity for universities to take the lead, show leadership about what's possible in that space. Sorry, I'm jumping up and down with the slides a bit. All the universities had a focus on environmental impact, recycling initiatives, waste reduction policies, which is fantastic. Again, health not often featuring too heavily in their environmental initiatives. And given the big contribution that food makes to environmental sustainability, that's probably an area for action. For food retail outlets, which is the last domain that we looked at, look, food on campus is generally at all the campuses is both health. There's a whole lot of healthy food and a whole lot of unhealthy food. So it's really a mix. I suppose in an ideal world, we'd move towards having much more focus on the healthy and sustainable foods. In general, price promotions are not such a big deal on the campuses we looked at, which I guess is a good thing compared to the world outside of university campuses where junk food is very often on special, heavily price discounted. Deakin does have traffic light labeling from a health point of view, which was cited as leading practice. You can see sort of the orange and green lights there on the salads. We didn't see any examples of environmental sustainability labeling, which I think in years to come will be a key area of focus. Almost all the universities had some initiatives around servingware, so trying to encourage people to, for example, have reusable coffee cups and things like that. I suppose the next step would be to extend that to be having products that are environmentally sustainable, not just their packaging. So some good progress, but a bit more work to go. So our recommendations across the sector, there's tailored versions of these for each university, is to have university-wide policies that limit the availability of unhealthy foods on campus, with smart targets in place for the proportion of foods on campus that are healthy and environmentally sustainable. The second recommendation is around ensuring that the contracts with food retail outlets explicitly include health and environmental sustainability considerations, including around procurement, marketing, information provided to users. I mentioned catering and events as a real opportunity for universities to show leadership in what healthy food can look like. And also our recommendation is for universities to regularly monitor food environments on campus, including food security. So look, to wrap up this presentation, but we will have plenty of opportunity for questions later in the webinar, is that this UniFood tool can be used to advocate for improvements to food environments, and we hope that the launch of this report can generate action from the university as well as others involved, students, staff, policymakers, perhaps at a government level, to incentivize universities to take more action here. But just by way of summary, there's a major opportunity for universities to lead the way in showing what healthy, equitable, and environmentally sustainable food systems look like. And hopefully this work that we've all been involved in can help pave the way to more action there. Thank you. I'll take questions, I think, after the other presentations. So I'm going to now pass to the University of Tasmania, so Sandra Murray, to carry on.
Thanks very much, Gary. And my name's Sandy Murray, and I'd also like to introduce you to Catherine Elliott, who's my colleague who will be sharing the conversation with me today. So we're going to provide a snapshot of the campus food environment journey at University of Tasmania. And you can see from this map, University of Tasmania is not just in Hobart, it's also in Launceston, Burnie, and it's also up in Sydney as well, which many people don't realise. I'd also like to acknowledge that Leah Galvin is on the call today, and Leah Galvin is a sustainable food procurement consultant from Tasmania, and we do a lot of work with Leah, so she's just been so important in our conversation around this journey. Before I begin, I wanted to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal community, and I am based up in Launceston, along the banks of the Canamalooka Tamar River, and Catherine is in Nipaluna, Hobart, at the foothills of the mountains. So we're joining you from two different places, which is where University of Tasmania is based. So before we begin the journey, I wanted to, I guess, give you a sense of how long the journey's been for us towards a healthy, more sustainable and more equitable food environment on campus. We started the conversation around sustainability back in 2011, but it hasn't been since, wasn't until 2019 that our journey into sustainable, equitable and healthy food environments really started in earnest, and that was during COVID, as some of you will recall. So we did a lot of things during that time, and we wanted to take you through that journey. And a lot of it was around the campus food environment audit, and a lot of it was around looking at the prevalences of food insecurity among our students as well as our staff. So we'll take you through that journey in the next few slides. So to begin with, back in 2019, just prior to COVID, we actually established the Sustainable Food Systems Working Group, which I co-facilitate with colleagues. So this is a formal working group that reports to the Sustainability Committee, which reports to the University Executive Team at University of Tasmania. So it has a direct line to our Vice-Chancellor and our Senior Executive Team at the University. So you can see here that the food environment is actually quite important, but the journey to where we are today is something we want to share with you at this point in time. Catherine, I'll hand back to you now to describe what the SIPS program is all about.
Thanks, Sandy. So Sandy and I wanted to acknowledge that we're presenting today on behalf of a much bigger group of people at our university. So we're part of a working group that includes professional staff, academic, teaching and research staff, as well as students. Over the last few years, we've had around 30 students who have worked with us on the question of food equity and our food environments. And many of those students have worked with us through our SIPS program that I coordinate. And those students come and work with us through paid internships. They enroll in work integrated learning units and really importantly participate in major projects supervised by their unit coordinator. Many of those students have come to us through Sandy's classes in health and nutrition. And we have also had students who are undertaking HDR projects through honours or their PhD as well. And this is a really important way that students can shape the food environment and be part of this change.
Thanks, Catherine. So to begin with, what we've realised was numbers were really important, and we'll elaborate on that very soon. So back in 2020, just before the COVID lockdown, we undertook our biannual sustainability survey, and we had the opportunity to include one single question about the prevalences of food insecurity. What we found from that survey was that 38% of our students had experienced food insecurity in the previous 12 months. So this helped to pave the way to better understand what was happening among our community within the university. And we've continued to track that which is what I'll share with you in the coming slides. But those types of numbers really counted, particularly when talking with our senior management to get a better sense of where we are in terms of health, sustainability and equity. So then take a step forward then. We now are in the thick of COVID, we're in lockdown. We had the opportunity then to undertake a participatory action research process, a co-design process, which allowed us to start to explore the experience of our students and staff on campus. And the vision they created, all of this was obviously done on Zoom because we couldn't get together face to face, was to create an environment for growing, cooking, buying, selling, sharing, redistributing and eating healthy, equitable and sustainable food that is safe, affordable and easy to access for everyone. So that conversation started to evolve. Catherine?
So one of the reasons that we really liked the uni food tool when Gary and the team first approached us was that it enabled us to work with students to check what their experience of the university campus was. So this meant that it wasn't the university, it wasn't staff members like Sandy and I responding about the university food environment, but it was students themselves going out to check what they could find. And we really liked that we would get 0 points if something existed, but the students couldn't find it. So when we first participated in the tool in 2020, this was, I think we were one of the only universities in Australia that had their campus open at the time, but many of our students and staff were still in lockdown. So while the students could come on campus and undertake the food audit, it probably didn't reflect the way the university would normally operate if we weren't in lockdown time. So there was less food availability. But as you can see across the 3 areas, we scored 45 overall. Next, Sandy. And what we liked in the feedback that we received in the report was that we scored quite well on areas of equity and voice, so ensuring that our community has a say in the types of food that is available on campus. And the report also identified for us areas that we could work on, and one of those areas was in ensuring that there is health and nutrition guidance through strategies or policies, and that's something that we began to work on. Okay. Next. Sorry. Do you
Yeah,
want...
your turn. Yes,
Okay.
your turn.
So at the same time as this was happening, our university executive was also looking at the type of food providers that we had on campus, and our procurement and campus services team worked to create these 8 principles, which heavily focus on local food and sustainability in food, and they became part of our new contract for food retailers on campus. And since that food tool, we are very happy to share that we also now have a full-time community garden coordinator. And this is Jeff, that you can see in one of the photos on your screen. And Jeff is able to bring together the community gardens that we have at our different campuses. So they may in the past have looked like a single garden bed outside a building, but we now have a network of those gardens across our campuses, and this really big new garden in Launceston at our Launceston campus.
So back to me then. So in terms of monitoring the prevalences of food insecurity among our university students, we've made a commitment to continue to track that. Back in 2020, it was 38% of our students. We then continued to track it because we have our biannual sustainability survey, and this time we included 6 questions that were food related. And this is post-COVID, heading into the cost of living crisis. We now have 42% of our students who recognise themselves as food insecure, as well as at the same time 17% of our staff, which was a real surprise to us.
1 minute, Sandy.
Yes, Catherine.
We've repeated the food tool last year with a new group of students, and even though there have been some big changes in our food environment, we got a similar score in the food tool, and that's because the same areas, we hadn't worked on them yet. Next, Sandy. So the big area for us was to work on strategy, and that's the strategy that Sandy mentioned earlier. That's currently with our university executive, and that's been a big holistic process involving staff from different academic areas of the university, professional staff and students as well. And also importantly, the area that I think we're still missing is that information about nutrition and health when you're at a food retailer as well.
I might slip to the next slide, Catherine. So importantly, we're in the process of having our first University of Tasmania Healthy, Sustainable and Equitable Food Strategic Plan reviewed by our university executive team. So this gives you the framework of what it looks like with 9 priority areas. So we look forward to that being finalised, and hopefully we'll be able to share it with you in the first quarter of next year. So we're very excited about it, and it provides us with an opportunity to include everything that we've been doing, including the work around the uni food tool to this point. And I guess then to sum up where we're at, and this is something Catherine and I were talking about, was important for us, is to find your voice, find your allies, get into action and make your numbers count. And our food insecurity prevalence data, our campus food environment audit data has been really important for that. Get involved with your research partners, embed this into your curriculum, and really rally the troops, I think is my final word. Catherine, did you want to add to that?
No, that's great. Thanks very much, Sandy.
Thanks very much, everyone. That's the end of our presentation.
Thanks so much, University of Tasmania. Great learnings. And now I'd like to invite Shirley Phan from Monash.
Thank you, Victoria. I am just going to share my screen. Hopefully that's showing up well for everybody. Hello, everyone. My name is Shirley Phan, and I'm the Wellbeing Project Officer and Nutrition Pillar Lead here at Monash University. And in my role, I lead the delivery of a suite of nutrition initiatives across Monash's campus food environment, as well as the delivery of workplace nutrition campaigns. And it's a real pleasure to be here with everyone today, sharing our experience with the Uni Food Tool. Before we begin, I too wish to acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nations on whose land Monash University operates, because that's where I'm calling from today. And I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Attendees may be based elsewhere, and I pay my respects to the traditional owners of the lands from wherever you may be joining us. So before I jump into sharing our experience, let me just give you a bit of background about Monash, as that would provide some context to the work that we do across our campus food environment. We're a relatively young university founded in the late 1950s, and we're now Australia's largest university. We do have a significant global footprint with 8 campuses across 5 countries and over 84,000 students and over 18,000 staff, with majority of our staff and students being based in Victoria. To cater to the diverse needs of our Monash community and to provide staff and students with an exceptional campus experience, we have a range of food retailers that operate across our campuses. Monash's food retail environment is a large, complex, and diverse system with over 40 food retailers, of which 10 of them are franchise outlets. And we also have a supermarket and a convenience store on site. Monash currently has 3 key nutrition initiatives implemented across its food environment, and they're underpinned by the Victorian Government's Healthy Choices Guidelines, which is a set of nutrition guidelines that classifies food and drinks into green, amber, or red, with green products being the healthiest. Across the campus, we also have a whole suite of facilities as well as services that staff and students can utilize, including kitchenettes, water taps, community gardens, health services. And talking about food security, our student associations also run a significant food security and food relief program for our students. So the work that we do across the university is also supported and governed by policies and procedures such as our Health and Wellbeing Strategic Action Plan, which covers the 5 pillars of wellbeing at Monash. We also have the Healthy Food Procedure, as well as our sustainability strategy. So why did Monash participate in this benchmarking study? So we were invited to participate in the benchmarking study back in late 2021, which was really exciting for us as well, because we had embarked on the journey to create healthier campus food environments a little over 8 years ago. And we were curious as to how we're performing, because we've come so far. And in participating in this benchmarking study, it will also provide us with a baseline of how we're performing, and also help identify areas where we could be innovating and doing better. And this also allows for continuous improvement of existing programs and interventions. And participating in the audit also meant that we could contribute to the evidence base to build further support and advocacy efforts for driving transformative change across the tertiary sector to create healthier campus food environments. Coincidentally, we also had 3 students who were commencing their public health nutrition placements with me, and we thought it'll also be a great learning opportunity for the students to be involved in a project like this. And when we commenced on the benchmarking audit, we focused on assessing the food environment at Clayton campus, because that's our largest campus with over 30 retailers operating on site. The benchmarking audit of our campus food environment was no doubt a significant project. That being said, it was fairly simple and straightforward to complete. It was a really systematic way of assessing our campus food environment, and there were clear prompts with each question and type of information and evidence that needed to be gathered. The way that the questions were divided into domains and subdomains also made it really easy for the students to work through the themes and focus on what needed to be done. And it was also a really great learning experience for the students, because they had opportunities to interact with a wide range of stakeholders and explore the different policies, procedures, systems, and programs that exist at Monash, and also influence and shape the campus food environment. Not to mention, this was also the first group of students that I had supervised in person after the COVID-19 pandemic. And these students were students who have completed a significant chunk of their studies online and have not had much of a campus experience. So it was a great opportunity for them to learn about the university, the campus, and its food environment. So in my previous slide, I mentioned that there were some key stakeholders involved in shaping the campus food environment, and they include our property and leasing team, planning team, sustainability team, customer experience and insights team, the health and wellbeing team. And of course, we also consult with our Monash community via surveys to gather feedback. And overall, from the audit itself, Monash performed really well in the study and scored 66 out of 100, which we were really pleased to see. We did perform really well in the university systems and governance, as well as campus facilities and environments component of the audit tool. But we did note that there were several areas for improvement when it came to the food retail component. So what were our key strengths? Here at Monash, we are very fortunate to have dedicated funding and resources to support the development, implementation, and ongoing monitoring of nutrition and sustainability initiatives across the university and its food environment. We do have policies and procedures in place to support and inform the provision of healthy food within the food retail environment. And we do incorporate nutrition clauses into our leasing agreements as well. We also have a sustainability strategy, which provides oversight into sustainability-related matters as well as initiatives. And we do have a circular economy strategy that's in the works at the moment. Here at Monash, we also provide comprehensive support and a suite of targeted engagement programs aimed at raising awareness about the benefits of healthy and sustainable foods and supporting behavior change among the Monash community. Examples of some of that, the nutrition campaigns that I deliver to staff includes our Smart Eating Week, Planetary Health Campaign, as well as Try for 5. And they're really aimed at encouraging healthy eating patterns, as well as equipping staff with the skills and knowledge to make informed food choices. As for the student cohort, we educate and engage with them via in-person engagement activities, as well as social media. And we also partner with retailers to provide meal deals on healthy options where possible to incentivize healthy food intake and purchases. We do also offer nutrition consultation with dietitians at subsidized rates for those who would like to seek tailored advice and support as well. From a facilities perspective, like I mentioned earlier, the university is well equipped with those facilities. And we do also have a supermarket on site, which provides additional access to healthy food and drinks as well. The other thing I also wanted to note is that the physical campus environment itself is free from unhealthy food and drink advertising, because the university is also quite strict on that. So what do we take away from the audits in terms of areas for improvement? We noted that while we've accomplished a lot and have delivered a lot of great work, it also did highlight the need for ongoing advocacy to continue growing the programs and build further support to continue creating healthy, sustainable, and equitable food environments. More specifically, advocacy really needed to be taking place across multiple levels and stakeholder groups and be incorporated into campus planning at an upstream level as well. And we are having some conversations internally to look at how we can create a healthier, sustainable, and equitable campus food environment. We also need to explore provision of additional supports and incentives to help address the barriers to implementation as well. And while our policies provide a great platform to inform and support the work that we do, there is also a need to strengthen existing policies to support ongoing implementation, monitoring, and compliance within food retail outlets. Like I mentioned earlier, while we do consult with staff and students via surveys to gather feedback, it is also important that we do have student representation at the table, and we do recognize that that was a gap and are looking to build on that and address that when we look towards reshaping our campus food environment in the future. One of the other recommendations that we also received was the introduction of waste monitoring and reduction programs. And at that point in time, when we were completing this audit, this was actually still in the planning stages and is actually something that Monash is aiming to roll out now in early 2024. So that's really exciting to know that we've got new waste monitoring and reduction programs in place. The other key recommendation that we received was to also explore the introduction of pricing strategies to make sure that a range of healthy and sustainable food options that are available and are affordably priced, and that they are incentivized for consumption. And that's something that we're also working on. So what have we done since we completed the benchmarking audit in 2022? So in the last year and a half, I would say a lot of work has taken place. So I've led a cross-divisional team to deliver on the Reimagining Food Gardens project, where we've transformed over 40 garden beds across Monash into productive food gardens for our students who are living on campus. And this is to help tackle food insecurity as well as increase students' access to fresh produce. Our sustainability team have also launched their reusable dining program to help reduce the amount of disposable single-use packaging and servingware generated across our food retail environment. And in just 7 months of operations, we've diverted over 100,000 reusable plates and cutlery from landfill. I've also partnered with our campus food retailers to co-design and pilot the Healthy Meal Specials project, where I developed several new menu items with retailers, and they were then incorporated in their businesses for sale, with some of the items being priced under $10 to make them more affordable for students, especially with the rising cost of living. Granted, $10
1 minute, Shirley.
Thank you.
Sorry.
$10 may still be a little bit pricey for some, but we were also mindful of the financial viability for our retailers. And when we piloted it with one retailer, we sold over 6,000 portions of healthy meals over a span of 24 weeks. And that's still a really positive outcome to see. I've also worked with our campus supermarket to transform their ready-to-go section at the front of the store to feature more healthy options, and we successfully reduced the proportion of unhealthy red products featured in that section from 56% to 38%. So that's another positive step towards having a healthier campus food environment too. We also did some work and collaborated with our student associations and researchers to plan and deliver 4 food relief markets to help alleviate experiences of food insecurity, which serviced another 2,000 students. So we're definitely keen to continue innovating and do better, but it does take time, and we recognize that, and we need to take it step by step. And with that, that brings me to my last slide. Apart from creating healthier food environments at Monash, I am also the co-chair for the Healthy and Sustainable Tertiary Food Environments Community of Practice. And this community of practice focuses on the practical elements of support for practitioners working to create healthier food environments. And our next meeting is on Thursday, 30th November from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So if you would like to be involved, please feel free to reach out. My contact details are on the slide, so I look forward to hearing from you. And with that, I'll hand that back to Victoria.
Thanks so much, Shirley. Such inspiring work that you're all doing, and what a great team. And thanks to you and to the other presenters. And I'd like to open up to questions. We do have a few in the chat, but if anyone else would like to jump in, please feel free. So I think I'll start with the first one, which was from Denise. And I think we're all thinking this: how did you get a full-time community garden coordinator? And I believe that was to you, Taz.
Catherine, do you want to have a go at that?
Yeah. Partly, I think we were all very surprised with the results from the food questions in the sustainability survey. So I don't think we were anticipating to see such high levels of food insecurity. That first survey was done just prior to COVID as well. And so that led us to a big rethink. And we also, at the time, had a lot of support from our university leadership who just changed, and they were very supportive of us increasing and broadening the community gardens that were available for our community. Yeah. Sandy, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and I think it coincided with the rebuild of 2 of our campuses, one in Launceston and one in Hobart. So who was going to manage the gardens? We knew volunteerism wasn't going to work. So we really pushed it, particularly from the sustainability team's perspective. And so we got it across the line. But it was very, very much supported by the sustainability team, including Catherine and Corey Peterson, our Chief Sustainability Officer, and colleagues as well from that sustainability angle.
Yeah, and a recognition that you need those skills to coordinate the community garden. You can't just rely on people volunteering on the side of their desk. Yeah.
Proper resourcing rather than goodwill, I think, is there. You need goodwill, but you also need resourcing. So no, thank you. There was a question from El Dando for Gary. Gary has answered it in the chat, but if you wanted to add anything to it, the question was, without having seen the tool, is there potential for Unifood to be adapted to other large food environments such as major health services? Gary, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll come back to that when I talk about the next step. So why don't we move on to some of the other questions, Victoria?
No worries. Amy Wakeham. Thanks, Amy. So Amy's question was, when it comes to food retail outlets, has there been consideration for the type and framing of labelling of healthy options? For example, descriptive or evaluative nutrition labelling, such as traffic light stickers versus healthy eating calls or nudges, such as highlighting the healthiest options alone. So I think that could be more directed towards probably Monash or Shirley, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, happy to jump in. Here at Monash, we do have traffic light labeling across our food retail environment as well as in our vending machines. We do use quite similar language to what's being used in the Healthy Choices guidelines. That being said, in our food retail environment, we did have some conversations with our marketing teams as well as other stakeholders across my division around the stakeholders that are involved in shaping the food environment. And we were concerned about, let's say, if we were to be putting up negative nudges, how would that be taken by the consumers? And so we have chosen to take a more positive approach and focus on highlighting and promoting the healthy options. So we focus on labeling only the green products in those instances, and we then communicate that to our community, whether it's through social media, internal communication platforms, educational opportunities, so that they're aware of what the traffic light labeling means. With our vending machines, we do have it fully implemented in there, and it's also a lot easier to have that fully implemented in vending machines because of the way the guidelines are set up, and to assess packaged products, it is a lot easier. And it's also easier to control the proportions of products that are available in the vending machines. So we've gone with full implementation in that space, and we do provide legends as well as some information on the machines to help people make informed choices.
Okay, brilliant. And so further to that, Leah Knapp has just put a question in that's a good link. And how did you support the franchises to make the changes to labelling?
We've actually struggled a little bit with working with our franchises. There are quite a few restrictions with working with franchises when it comes to implementing the traffic light labeling. Often we get questions and pushback around branding concerns, as well as how it aligns with the presentation in store. The other thing to consider is also the fact that we are unable to shift the proportion of we're unable to make recipe modifications rather to the products that are being offered by franchise outlets. So we've been focusing our efforts on the smaller businesses to start, but that's not to say that we can't work with franchise outlets. I've been having some conversations with some of the franchise outlets around potentially creating a special product for Monash itself, where we're highlighting and showcasing those green options that we have developed in partnership with them. So it's a very different approach in comparison to the typical approach that we usually take with recipe modification. We're looking at, let's create a new product instead, and focusing on the positives, really.
Mm-hmm. We have got loads of great questions coming in. I'm just conscious of time. I might jump to Penny Love's question again about food gardens. And if there's any questions that we haven't answered, we will put them out after the event. So thank you. So Penny's asked, how are the food gardens being evaluated in terms of student usage of the produce? And is this a meaningful way to enhance vegetable consumption and food insecurity issues?
Catherine, did you want to have a go at that one first, and then I can add?
Yeah, sure. I would say at the moment, we don't know the answer to that question, but we're also developing our Edible Campus Action Plan at the same time as our strategy, and that will help us to monitor what we're growing in the garden. We do find it's really helpful, the conversations that you have while gardening, because sometimes people might be quite happy to volunteer and to help grow things in the garden, but they might not know how to use that vegetable yet. So the conversations you have in the garden are really helpful to breaking down some of those barriers that you might know exist around food preparation. Sandy, did you want to talk about some of the work that you're doing as well?
Yeah, so Penny, really great question. In fact, it's quite early days for Jeff and his role as our community gardens coordinator, and we've been talking about what that operationalisation looks like for our students to get involved. So from next year onwards, when we've got a huge amount of produce, particularly in curriculum planning, that's something that I'm working towards to make sure all the produce is being used. We're also in close collaboration with our community networks, particularly in our more vulnerable communities as well, to make sure all the produce is being used. And then working really closely with our campus residential colleges as well, to make sure produce is being used and students are actually involved from paddock through to plate, really. So early days, and so I think watch this space. So once we start to operationalize it in 2024, I think moving forward we're going to see just that embeddedness flourish, really. Thanks.
Wonderful. We do have a great question from Rachel about pricing interventions, but I think we'll probably answer that separately. Gary, would you like to move to next steps?
Sure, thank you. So I'll just bring up some slides for that. So we have grand plans for the next steps for this uni food tool, and more broadly our work to try and improve the characteristics of food environments in Australia. So the feedback we've had is that the process of being assessed by the uni food tool is helpful for guiding where action is needed, for generating high level impetus for change. And so I think the idea would be that this is a tool that universities can pick up to do a self-assessment, repeated assessment over time, like UTAS has done. I think when you can track progress and show progress, I think that's when it really becomes valuable. And so hopefully it can. There's a lot of potential actions in this area. Hopefully that the tool can some guide what a comprehensive approach looks like. But beyond the university sector, there were some questions about where else this could be used, and we've got several ideas. I saw in the chat suggestions to use it in healthcare settings, potentially in schools. I think the school setting might be a little bit different, but we had in mind that over time we might be able to give a high street or a score, and local governments could use that as part of their planning and advocacy for both the rules that govern the shopping strip, but also for deciding which outlets can go there. That's probably a long-term plan. I think I'd love to rate food courts on how they're going. I think in principle they're not really that different to a university setting, where you've got a whole lot of different outlets that are governed by the shopping centre itself. So I think there's lots we can do. I think we're finding in our research on food environments that the scorecard approach is well received. It speaks to the high level decision makers because it summarizes things on a page. It recognizes strengths as well as showing opportunities. So watch the space. I think anyone interested in particularly using the tool at universities, the link to our website is in the chat, and we'd be happy to help facilitate that. This webinar was put on by the Nourish network and Refresh. They have another webinar coming up in a couple of weeks, so the details are there, with more details of that on the website. So to sign up to the newsletters for both those groups if you're keen. And then I just wanted to end off by thanking everyone who's been involved. This work for the UniFood tool has been underway for at least 3 years now, and to all the people working at universities across the country to improve the state of food environments. Thanks, and good luck as you try and get more things happening. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your afternoon.